Raj, it's great to be here with you today. I'm here with Raj Kapur, the founder and CEO of And Marketing, and a good friend of mine. Raj, I'd like to get us started first by understanding what is And Marketing and how do you come up with the idea of fractional marketing and an agency to build this business. Entrepreneurs interest me, and you are clearly an entrepreneur. So how did you get it started?
Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, John. It's a real pleasure. And obviously, you and I have been friends for a few years now, so it's good to finally be on the show and your audience. Hopefully, we can make some magic today. So my entrepreneurial journey is, I don't know if it's common or uncommon, but I started this business about 8 years ago. Prior to that, I have about 20 years of mostly big company corporate experience. I worked in consumer packaged goods. I went back to business school. I worked in large corporate America for a number of years. Then I pivoted because I got sick of the bureaucracy and politics of large companies. I had a great experience, but there's always a negative to it. And I became a strategy consultant at a small boutique for about 4 years. That company did marketing strategy and innovation for Fortune 100 companies. So very similar to my large company experience, except I was a strategy consultant. And I absolutely love being a strategy consultant. So I was able to do multiple projects at really big companies and work on really strategic and innovative types of projects with the C levels of some of those large companies. And I really enjoyed it. It was really stimulating. It was really fun. That lasted about 4 years, and it came to an end for two kind of big reasons. On the professional side, that strategy firm wasn't that forward when it came to digital marketing. And as you know, and as everybody knows, marketing in today's age is all digital marketing. And I was approaching a milestone in my life and my career, and I said, I can't really have a career in marketing in the modern age without really understanding digital marketing. So I knew I need to make a career shift professionally. At the same time, as a strategy consultant, and you are people that your listeners know have probably known some strategy consultants, and I was traveling a ton. So I have 3 small kids. So right now my kids aren't so little; they're 16, 14, and 11. So 8 years ago, when I left that life, they were really little, and I was traveling 2 weeks out of every month internationally. So I was the guy who was always gone every Sunday night or Monday morning, and I would get back every Friday or Saturday and be all tired and jet lagged all the time. And I realized that really wasn't the life that I wanted to build. So I took the leap. I didn't originally think that I was going to start a new company and be an entrepreneurial. But what I did know is I wanted to be more digitally marketing focused. I wanted to be smaller company focused. So I had only worked in the Fortune 500, Fortune 100 world. And I knew that there had to be a better way, especially given digital marketing. So I expected I would be the sales and marketing leader or something like that at some smaller type of company. And I just never found that opportunity. But when I was taking my, what I call it a professional sabbatical or whatever, I started, and I was on a big coffee tour. I basically went out with anybody who would meet with me, learning how businesses work, looking for opportunities. I just started getting hired. People had big gaping needs when it came to marketing. They weren't finding that with their current providers, and they just started asking me for help. So I just started saying yes. So I said yes, the entrepreneurial way, right? I didn't make sure everything was perfect. I just said yes, started working on the project, got help when I needed it. And what I realized really quickly is the actual fingers on keyboard work in digital marketing is relatively easy to find, right? There's a lot of really good talent out there. But the difficult part was acting as a translator between the strategic level and the execution level of marketing, right? And what I knew from my own experience is that most digital marketing companies aren't very good at the strategic part and the execution part. There's good strategy firms and there's good sort of fingers on keyboard people, but building that bridge was really lacking. So over the course of several months, I just started filling that gap. I didn't mean to call it a marketing agency. I didn't mean to call it a marketing company. And we just started a company. I came out with this silly name, put my shingle up, hired a few people, young, energetic, smart people. And all of a sudden I had a company. And that was working pretty well, right? We weren't lighting the world on fire, but we were making more money than we were spending, able to pay fair salaries for myself and other people. And then the pandemic hit. And the pandemic almost entirely wiped me out. So the first day of the pandemic, I lost a $25,000 a month recurring revenue client. And that was a hard day. That business was it was a B2B service that provided healthcare to companies in large office buildings. And that basically got wiped out on day 1 of the pandemic. So that was kind of a big seminal moment for the business. And what I decided in that moment was I'm not going to lay anybody off. I know this is a major market disruption. I don't know how long it's going to last, and I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I'm not going to lay anybody off. And we're going to play offense. So I decided to play offense through the beginning part of the pandemic. And as everybody knows now, when all of those salespeople and the entire workforce started working from home, their need for digital tools skyrocketed. So we really rode that growth wave through the early part of the pandemic. And then what I found a couple years later was, yeah, we survived the pandemic, we thrived a little bit, we grew a little bit, but the fundamental challenge in the business was that it all centered around me. It's a major challenge for many entrepreneurial run organizations. So the business really surrounded on me, and I needed to build systems and processes in order for it to scale effectively. On that journey, what I found was that I was acting as the fractional CMO for so many of these little businesses, but I wasn't calling it that and I wasn't charging for it. There was this new term, it's called fractional CMO. And I said, wait, I think that's what we kind of do. And so I started adapting that into my business. What happened really quickly was that there were some clients who were not willing to pay for a fractional CMO or pay for strategy. We kindly said goodbye to them and moved them on their way. And the ones that did pay for a fractional CMO valued it tremendously.
Sure.
So we were able to keep them. Very quickly, I ran out of time. And I wasn't able to serve 20 clients as a fractional CMO. I couldn't be a sales leader for 20 companies. You can't be a marketing leader for 20 companies. And so I was able to find other people with significant experience like mine, where I was able to have them work on some of that client work, right? On a kind of an
You shared your work with others.
sharing my work with others in the gig workforce, which exploded since the pandemic, right? So finding that talent wasn't particularly difficult. And so, a little fractional CMO business was born. Fast forward a couple of years in 2025, where we are today, and that business is the majority of our revenue. And we basically have two parts to our business. We have fractional chief marketing officers, and then what we have is we call it a fractional marketing department. I don't necessarily call it an agency because people like me on the other side of the table don't always think of that as a favorable term, but that's kind of what we are. And we have about 50 fractional chief marketing officers from all over the country, all different company sizes and stages, all different industries. And we act as the middleman. We help them get projects and we help companies who are looking to grow and scale, but don't necessarily need a full-time marketing leader to be able to have access to that type of talent. So it works out pretty well. It's very similar in many ways to the sales X model, right? Because the sales X is on the sales side, and obviously we're on the marketing side. So that's a little bit about the history of the business.
Hey, listeners, John Yankanich here. Are you struggling to get your sales team firing on all cylinders? My fractional sales services can help. I work with businesses like yours to boost sales by relationship building, strategic planning, and proven techniques. Want to take your revenue to the next level? Message me on LinkedIn to get started today. That's really a great thing. And I know because I've worked with you with a couple clients before, you've helped incredibly. But one of the things I think I want you to give some thought to how you choose those 50, 55 fractional CMOs, because what I found is in marketing, it's really important to have some understanding of the market that you're in. The couple that we placed with some of my clients that came from your organization had the specific industry or type of company experience that really helped. And so how do you fill all those roles? How do you determine who should be part of your bench that can fill all kinds of jobs in the small business community?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the magic of it, right? So I'd say a couple of things. So first of all, I think there's about 10,000 people in the United States, or at least on LinkedIn, who call themselves fractional CMOs. So the market is full of people who are claiming to do what we do. And as you know, there's no certification for fractional CMO. I always say anybody with a Mac can call themselves a fractional CMO. Like, let's go, right? So we have a pretty stringent criteria to even be interviewed, right? So the criteria is threefold. Number one, you have to have at least 15 or 20 years experience. Most people have 20. We allow a few digital ninjas with a little less than 20, and that's okay. But you have to have at least 20 years of overall experience, because we want people that have had enough experience to be able to see a lot of things, because you're going to be able to have to hit the ground running. Number two, you had to have run a real marketing department inside a real company. I don't want people who have never run a marketing department, never been in a leadership position, never worn the company badge. Those are really important. And then number three, you had to spend a significant amount of time as a consultant, an advisor, or an agency owner. So you need to know what it's like on the services side of the business at all. So those are just the basic criteria that get an interview with me. Beyond that, we check for culture, we check for fit, we do a predictive index personality assessment. We want to make sure that that person has the right attributes from a cultural and community perspective to be in our community. Okay. So that's the first pass. You have to be able to do that to get into our community. The second part is our proven process, right? We weren't on EOS. And so our proven process is that we go through a very clear multi-step process to talk to the particular client. So in your situation, we talked to those companies, got a really clear understanding of not just what their marketing needs are, but what's going on in the business. Where are you today? Where were you yesterday? Where do you plan on going tomorrow? And what worked or what didn't work in your marketing department in the past? Because we certainly don't want to rehash all the previous mistakes. We want to understand where marketing fits in the context of the overall business. And then we look for attributes that are particular to that, that particular person or that particular solution. So then we go through our matching process. We get a clear idea of what that spec is. We go through our matching process. We send it out to our community. Everybody, all of those 50 fractional CMOs have an opportunity to apply. It's pretty meritocratic. And then we go through the matching process with every particular prospect. So we'll not just do I call it the on the page and off the page, right? So on the page, does this person have the experience to be able to do what this company is trying to do?
Sure.
Again, either from an industry perspective or from a skill set perspective, whatever that is. And then the second one is all about culture. I always tell people that as fast as you want to go to hire your fractional marketing leader, you should actually go slowly and make sure that person's going to be a fit with you, no matter what you're trying to do. So very similar to your business in that aspect too. So that's really the magic behind it. There's no magic, but that's really the magic sauce on getting such a good high hit rate.
You've done a great job with it, and it is very similar to SalesX. You're looking at 15, 20 years. You've had roles in industry and businesses that you've run sales departments, in your case, marketing departments. And the cultural fit is super important too. Our community with SalesX, I would love to work with any of the advisors that we have. They're great. And I know from experience working with several of your fractional CMOs, I see something similar. So you're doing something right there. That's great. Maybe for our listeners, Raj, you can give us an example just briefly about where you have helped a business owner. So maybe think of one of the clients that you've had that you've really made a difference in their business, and share that example with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we tend to work with a lot of companies who are aggressively trying to grow, right? So if it's a let me call it a lifestyle type of a business that doesn't really have a growth mandate, many times it doesn't make sense to bring in one of our people because our people are growth minded. So that is usually companies that are private equity backed, trying to get private equity backed, trying to get sold, family businesses that are growing and scaling and exited. So they're going through some period of transition. So the example that comes to mind that you're mentioning is a private equity backed home services company, right? So they just received private equity funding. They got in a new CEO. It was the amalgamation of a couple of acquisitions. And one of the CEO came in and very quickly realized that there was no marketing infrastructure. And this individual had a marketing background, so he knew what good looked like and he knew he didn't have it. So we ended up talking to this person. And in the home services space, it's really about winning at the point of attack, right? So you got to be on the first page of Google. You got to answer the phone. You got to be able to get that person when they're having a challenge in their house, right? So just think about that as a consumer. If your roof is leaking or your HVAC is not working, you need somebody right there to answer the phone. You want to be on the top page of Google.
We know that today at 97 degrees, we know the air conditioner has to be working.
Absolutely. 97, the air conditioner's got to work. And if it's 0 degrees, the heat's got to work. And there's like no tolerance for that, right? So, so what we were able to do is pretty impressive is that the person called us and said, I really need two things. Number one, I need somebody who can build a performance marketing engine fast. I don't have it. I know we're missing calls. I know we're not succeeding in terms of what our website looks like, what our presence is on Google, and all of those types of elements. At the same time, I want to build a marketing infrastructure from the beginning. So we actually ended up placing 2 fractional CMOs in this environment, right? The reason it's a success story is because we actually found 2 different people who were very willing to work together. One of them basically built a performance marketing engine in the matter of months that was able to unlock about $3 to $5 million of first year growth. That's it. Like straight to the top line, very profitable revenue just by doing the basics extremely well. This individual is an expert in performance marketing. On the other side, the other fractional CMO was focused on the team, was focused on building the brand for the long term. And that individual actually ended up getting hired as the full-time CMO after about 6 months. So usually I'll say this very, fliply, usually marketing people try to fight and decide who's better, but as long as they have really good understanding of roles and responsibilities, and these two individuals definitely did, they were able to come together, provide them an amazing solution, and drive a tremendous amount of growth for this business.
That's a great example, and I love the idea of working together. I know I've worked with several sales acceleration advisors together. When you each have talents that can complement one another, you can do an even better job for your client. So it's a great example there. So let's talk about how you differentiate yourself in your business from others. What do you see as different? I'll share some things after you do that I know is different, that I see, that I really respect about you and your business. But how do you differentiate yourself from other marketing organizations?
Yeah, I think the big difference. So there's a couple of different competitive fields that we're going after. So the first one is for the best talent. Okay, so we have a lot of different competitors. Many of them I respect a lot, right? So a lot of them started the industry. A lot of them are bigger than us. And what we found is that criteria that I talked about with the strict criteria for the hiring, not everybody's able to do that. And there's an untapped group of fractional chief marketing officers that want to maintain their independence externally. And so we allow and we try to be the best community for the best fractional CMOs that some of our competitors can't necessarily access. On the client side, we try to be as flexible and as data driven as possible, right? So those are the two real keys. What we find is that I talked to, so when I was building the business, I treated it like my own marketing project. And I talked to dissatisfied, dissatisfied clients of my competitors. What made you unhappy? What did you not like? And it came down to those two things. So first things first, the person tended to be very theoretical and strategic, not action oriented. So actually being able to get things done, drive campaigns, get results from those campaigns, and then measure the results of those campaigns. So not just strategy, but having a mix of strategy and execution. And then the second part of that was that they were able to drive leadership across the company, not just being a marketing leader, right? I think the painful kind of marketing leaders that I know you and I have both worked with, John, are very much in a silo. They're not part of the leadership team. They don't like to get their hands dirty. So we found that to be really important. So we emphasize that in our fractional CMO engagements.
Yeah, well, so I remember the first time we met 3+ years ago, and I had met a number of people. It being in the sales environment, I thought one of the closest connections, and another other questions about marketing, we should be related in some way because we're both trying to grow the business, right? But I ran across so many different marketing people. And one of the things I saw with you, Raj, is your focus on analytics. You said being data driven, and a willingness and actually an expectation to set up an accountability for your organization and audit yourself as part of your process. And I found that unique, that most marketing organizations don't want to shine a light on what they're doing. They're just going to show you some information that really doesn't matter, impressions or something like that. And that doesn't lead necessarily to the success, the growth that a business owner is looking for. And that was the first thing that really captured me when I met with you. I was like, wow, this guy's different and this organization is different. Later, I found the fractional marketing thing, and I was like, geez, that could really help. That's exactly what this company, or I'm on a board of a company, and that company needs this help. And I can't do it because that's not my expertise, but I know someone that has a bench full of people that probably can. So those were some of the things I thought were unique with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and somebody with your experience and intellect picking up on that. I love it because that's exactly the message we're trying to send. I always laugh with my clients or my partners and things like that. I always say, I promise you, I have fired more crappy marketing agencies than you have because I know what it's like to do a bunch of activity and not know if it's working, to get unclear reporting, to not have accountability, to not break down the wall, right? So there's this wall when an agency runs a particular campaign. They say, hey, we got you a bunch of leads. We did our job. But what do you find out? The leads aren't any good. They don't really have contact information. There's no closed loop. So I always emphasize in all of our engagements and all of our work with our fractional CMOs that if you can't draw a line between your work and more profit, more revenue, more leads, more money, then you really need to reassess what you're working on. You don't put yourself in a silo. So I'm really glad you picked that up, and it's a major point of emphasis for us.
It's really clear, Raj, the quality of work that you have, and it's different than many others. So that is good, and it's probably led to a lot of success. There's a lot of belief because with sales and marketing, any type of growth, it's not a straight line. Nothing's 100%. So it's always, and I always talk to my clients and say, you know what? You can't guarantee someone's going to buy from you. You can't even guarantee they're going to meet with you. But if you work on things and you modify, you can get better and better and better. And if you don't use analytics and data to help you figure out those things, you're not going to get to the best answers. So I appreciate that about you. Let's talk a little bit about sales and marketing and what you consider. How do you consider how they can help and work together? How have you worked best that in an organization that requires both marketing and sales success, that they work best together? What are some of those attributes that marketing offers or sales offers, or they need help from each other?
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I love this topic, as you know, John. So I would say I've been in a lot of really good sales and marketing relationships, and I've been in a lot of really bad sales and marketing relationships. And
Hmm.
the perspective I bring is I'm also a salesperson, right? So I run my company. I primarily run the sales. So I have a marketing department. So I'm the sales guy. They're the marketing team. And then we
Yeah.
flip around because I run a marketing company and we work with salespeople. So I see it from both sides. I would say, first of all, the dysfunction is really well earned, right? Sometimes marketing people can be a giant pain in the butt. They can be too
Yeah.
theoretical. They can talk about these fancy frameworks and they can not be focused on short-term results. And it's a pain because when you're a salesperson trying to get a number, it's like, no, I don't really want to
Yeah.
hear the theory of what you're trying to do. I really need leads that I can call so I can make my number for the quarter
Yeah.
so that we can all have food.
Yeah.
That's a really important part of the equation. On the flip side, right, salespeople
Yep.
do tend to be very myopic, tends to be
Yep.
very difficult for them to take a step back, to get perspective, to learn, to listen, and to try new things. And the marketing department's responsibility is to provide them with market
Yeah.
information. What are competitors doing? What are our points of difference? What should our messaging be? Okay, so that's
Yeah.
like when it's broken. So I find there's
Yeah.
kind of two keys to keeping the cohesion between the two departments. And it starts with the leadership, absolutely, right? So if the
Yeah.
marketing leader and the sales leader don't get along, that's a major issue. So the two keys to me are number one is communication, right? It's formal communication and it's informal communication. If you're not texting each other and saying, hey, how's it going? How did that work? What's happening? Or if you don't have a regular, at a previous company I had, they had a QMR, quick rapid market response or something like that, where the sales and marketing teams got together on a regular basis. I think it was once every 2 weeks, and they talked about what's happening in the market today. Marketing brought information to that. Sales brought information to that. Sales fed information to marketing saying, here's what I'm experiencing. Marketing fed information, and they both listened really well. So both formal and informal communication, not just at the leadership rep level, but at the rep level where we're all talking all the time. So that's number one. And then number two, unsurprisingly, it's all about metrics, right? What are you measuring? If marketing scorecard is theoretical, difficult to find, difficult to measure, and doesn't relate back to actually driving the business results, and sales is only dealing with end revenue numbers or closed sales, there's this giant gap in between where you have to find common metrics. And finding common metrics somewhere between MQLs, which are marketing qualified leads, and SQLs, which are sales qualified leads, and doing really good attribution back to where those leads came from, how they're performing, and how they work themselves through the pipeline. Those are the things that you should be measuring. Now, every business is a little different, but I think when you boil it down to its simplicity, measuring all the right things, measuring them together, measuring them consistently, and then communicating about what's working and what's not working tends to be a really good solution. And the answer to the dysfunction is usually somewhere within there.
Raj, that was fire, actually. So I know you, in your career, as you described, you were a strategy consultant, so you can definitely do the high level stuff, and that's amazing to me because to have that type of talent, the intelligence to see strategically what happens. A lot of times, marketing does get caught in that, but I can see very much how you're focused on data, how you're focused on getting down to the granular level. That allows you to communicate with the sales team. As you said, often my experiences with sales reps, often they're myopic. They don't see the big picture. And they're going to say, I gotta get the next deal. I gotta go close that. And being able to bridge that, I think, is hugely important for the success for both marketing and sales leaders to see both sides. So I think that was a great sharing, a great example for our listeners. That was awesome. What about sometimes you need marketing, some organizations need sales, and not really the other. Can you give us an example of one where you have found that marketing, really, you might have been introduced, you're a king of growth. You're going to find some way to help a company really take off. But you say, it's not marketing. You need help with sales. That's where it's broken. So maybe you have an idea about the one that's like that.
It's good. It's a great question, because it's not that every company needs to invest a bunch of money in marketing to solve all of their problems, right? So I
Sure.
would say certain industries have dynamics where the channels are very clear, and beyond the basics, you don't need anything else. You need people to go pursue it. So, for example,
Yeah.
government, right? Certainly, you need marketing when you market to government. But for example, when your business is focused on the government, you have very clear procurement processes. You have very, let's call them rigid ways of buying. And so doing
Yep.
traditional marketing isn't always the right solution. I've also
Yeah.
found in a recent example that if the business itself has natural constraints, so either natural resources or labor constraints or other sources of resource constraints, you don't actually want to grow the business beyond a certain level because you can't
Yeah.
fulfill the capacity. So if you need to,
Yeah.
if you need widgets to run your business or some kind of like that, and there's only a finite amount of widgets available, you don't actually need to invest a bunch. You just need salespeople who can go find the sales, find the person, convince them of what's going on, and then move from there. So there is a role for marketing, but it's a little bit less. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't have a specific example of it. I mean, there's an industry that I'm involved in right now where their cost of labor is over 80% of their revenue. That's the cost
Okay.
of labor. So the
Yeah.
margins are so tight that you, by
Yeah.
definition, don't have a lot of money to go spend on marketing to grow the business. And what ends
Yeah.
up happening in a business like that, it's a very specialized labor pool. So you
Yeah.
can't actually find enough people to fill that pipe. So marketing's role changes a little bit. It becomes less about marketing in the way you and I think about it, like digital marketing, things like that. But it becomes much more about pricing. It becomes much more about margin enhancement. It's more like a general manager with a growth trajectory than it is a traditional marketing type of thing.
Yeah, that's another great example, Raj. And your understanding of business in general is actually really impressive. So thank you. Um, so let me change gears a little bit here before I ask you the what else I haven't asked you. If there was one thing, we've got a lot of stuff that's happening in the world right now. If there's one thing in the world that you would look to change, what would it be? And then also thinking about the small business community. So let's learn a little bit about you and then what you see in the business community that you would change and say, this should run differently. This should be different.
After having worked in large corporate America and then going down to the small business world, I think one thing
Yeah.
that is missing quite often is the ability to think strategically, right? In the big company world, so many people are trained to think strategically, that they fall down on the execution part. And so small companies are able to outmaneuver them because they're faster, they're able to be more nimble, and they're able to do more things with less resources. But the flip side of that pendulum, there's a famous quote by Sun Tzu in The Art of War, right? It is that strategy without tactics is the slowest path to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And I put that slide
Yeah.
on many of my marketing presentations because what I want to remind companies, even of a small size, is that you have to spend time on the strategic fundamentals. Because if you don't, then you waste so much time, so much energy, and there's so much noise that you can't be very focused in order to drive good results, right? And so, what are those strategic fundamentals? The strategic fundamentals is that no matter what product or service you're selling, there's a human being that has a problem and you're looking to solve that problem. Many
Yeah.
other people and companies are trying to solve that problem, but what makes you unique? If you boil all of marketing down to its simplicity, it's that people have
Yeah.
problems, they're looking for solutions to those problems, and you need to provide a unique solution to that problem. That's it. Everything else is complexity, right? So if you can take the opportunity with smaller businesses to boil things down to that level of simplicity, are you where they are going for information? Is your product easy to buy? Is it available? Are they aware of it? Those are all things that are really fundamental to that. So if I had a magic wand and I could help small businesses, I would simplify that process, because I think what's happened in the world, John, today is that they've gotten so complicated with all of the digital technologies, all of the fancy AI tools, all of these things that make it infinitely more complex. Plus, you have a bunch of hucksters out there that are saying, if you put up a Google ad, I'll get you 7 to 10 more leads next week. Like, all of these things make it much more difficult. and you have to actually go back to the strategic fundamentals.
Well, I know that's not how you operate, and it's one of the things I certainly respect about you. So, Raj, it has been a wonderful session that we've had here today. I'll have one more just of what else I should know. But I do want to say, Raj, it has been you and marketing have been a great resource for me as a sales leader, helping with clients, help with clients that I've served on their board. And I know you make a difference. They have sung your praises like nothing before. So it's great that we have a partnership here. I think your focus on the analytics, the data-driven process, willingness to be audited, and how you built it out, and then also the process that you had of bringing in experts like yourself that can fill all kinds of different roles and all kinds of different businesses and industries has really been valuable, that you can match a really experienced expert for a company. And I think that's a great model to have. It's really impressive that you built this out, Raj, 8 years ago, and it's come to this. That's awesome. But I have just one more for you. What else? What else should I know about Raj and marketing?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, John, I'm really humbled by your comment. So thank you so much. It means a lot. Obviously, you already know that, but whoever's listening should also know that it's been an honor to be a partner of yours and become a friend. And you're my trusted advisor when it comes to all things sales. And I've brought you many of my clients, and you've helped them out tremendously. So I reciprocate all the compliment, because you are awesome at what you do as well. Now to the hard question: what else should people know about me? So. As I mentioned, a couple things that might be interesting if you want to go further on them. So the first thing is I'm a family guy. People often joke about me that because I'm an entrepreneur, I don't really have any outside hobbies, but I really do love spending time with my kids. I got 3 boys. They're 16, 14, and 11. I love coaching their sports. That's my hobby. That's my extracurricular activity. So I've gotten into that pretty heavily over the past few years. I've been coaching my 16-year-old since he was about 5 years old in flag football, gotten super into it. So I really enjoy doing that. And I get, as you can imagine, as you know me personally, John, you can imagine I get super competitive about it. And I really enjoy it. It's a good outlet. It distracts me from the day-to-day grind of being an entrepreneur and running a business. The other side of it is, I part of my journey of self-discovery is that I do have ADHD. I didn't know that. I just thought I was a weird, hyperactive kid when I was little. And as I grew up and grew older, I didn't think I was weird. I didn't think anything like that, right? And then when my son, again, he's 16 now, was in the 1st grade, he got diagnosed with ADHD. And I said the famous line that has been, repeated many times. Wait, that's not ADHD. That's what I have. So that led me on this sort of journey of self-discovery about myself, about how my own brain works. And what I actually realized, and I choose to believe it this way, is that I take my ADHD as a superpower, right? Like there's 2 ways to look at everything. It's considered a condition or whatever you want to call it, but I don't look at it that way. I could choose to look at it that way and try to get pity from people, but instead I look at it as like a superpower. And what I need to do is have people around me that overcome some of the weaknesses that come with ADHD that allow me to be myself. Right? I'm not the most organized person in the world. I don't have the cleanest office. I don't have every single task done every single day, but the things that I do a pretty darn good job of, and I want to lean more into that. And I think what that taught me about humanity in general is that the world sometimes teaches you to be a certain way and against your own, your own self-direction, and you should often turn those off. Like the things that make you a little bit quirky and a little bit weird are the ones that you should lean more into, and you shouldn't try to be what you're not. And I try to repeat that lesson for my kids. I try to repeat that lesson for other people.
Well, a couple things, Raj. It is a superpower, and it's something I really appreciate you. Not the condition, but who you are. And I think it makes you very special, number one, and very capable, someone to partner with. And then secondly, I'm really glad that you made that realization after doing that job, that you were flying around the world and didn't have time with your family, because obviously the last 10 years or last 8 years, even with the responsibility that you have for your own company and all the people in your company as the CEO and founder, you're able to devote more time to your family. And I can see how genuinely it makes you happy, and I'm sure it does for your family as well. So congratulations on those decisions and your journey.
I appreciate it. That's what's important at the end of the day, right? Like nobody's going to remember us as other things than that. So I appreciate you saying that.
I appreciate it, Raj. Thank you very much. Raj Kapur, founder and CEO of And Marketing. Well, folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Why Won't They Do What I Tell Them to Do? If you're a business leader with a story to share or lessons that can inspire others, I'd love to have you on the show. Reach out to me directly on LinkedIn to tell me about yourself and why you'd be a great fit. Let's keep the conversation going and help more leaders get their teams moving in the right direction. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.